One of my other frustrations is the lack of the poverty perspective. Because if you really want these movements to work, especially building on the whole idea of class solidarity, then why is it there's never somebody with current lived experience of poverty at these conferences, talking with them, letting people know what what the reality is on ground level for us? We're never included at the table on the stage. Our opinions are never heard. And what's super frustrating to me is I will see usually a white guy say something that people are like, that's very profound. And meanwhile, I can tell you that everyone at my level of poverty, we already know that shit because we're living it. But we never get the credit for saying it because we don't have the ability to access the same spaces as them. Like, I don't need to read a book on how poverty exists in capitalism. I live it. I can tell you what it's like. I can tell you my experience. We know these things already, but we never get acknowledged. It's always some rich white guy, usually, and rich as in they're well off. Like they're not necessarily rich, but definitely not struggling. And they're telling us what our experience are like, but then they also miss a lot of things that somebody who lives with poverty would be actually able to include in the conversation. And so it becomes really frustrating seeing people say we need class solidarity, but exclude the poverty class all the time. And part of the problem is I don't know how to reach out to them because I can't afford to access the same spaces as them. I can't afford a blue check in my Twitter account. Not that I would want to give them my credit card information. The traveling expenses to go to these conferences, like it's not just the plane ticket and hotel room. What am I going to eat while I'm there? Like there's all these hiccups and stuff. And it's like, no, I don't have a college diploma or a university degree or a PhD. But having those doesn't make you smart because there's a lot of people who have those who ain't that smart. Or they're smart in one area. As somebody living with autism, I can tell you, I am brilliant in some areas. I am dumb as a doorknob in others. So they look at us with a little bit of, what's the word? Stereotype bias, things of that sort, that we don't know what we're talking about because we don't have the diploma to back it up. We have no credibility because we don't have a piece of paper saying we know what our experience is like. And at the same time, I can understand why they're reluctant to include us in the conversation, because if I say, yay, I can speak to this, how do they know? How do they know without doing like a crap ton of research on my YouTube channel to find out that, yes, I do know what I'm talking about? How do they know that just this random person with poverty knows what they're talking about when it comes to these issues? So to some extent, I can see it, but I also don't see them trying. I don't see them trying to find people with the poverty class to bring them to the table. Because the one that bugs me the most, I think it was Mehdi Hassan and Owen Jones were talking about inflation and how inflation wasn't that bad. And even on my channel, I've been railing against it before. And then a news article came out which said what I already knew. They had to, some people did some investigation and found this out, but I could have told you this, that inflation is not that bad if you're in the upper quarter. But if you're in the bottom 60%, inflation is worse. And when you look at averages, because the gap between the rich and the poor is increasing so much, if you just look at the averages, yeah, sure, inflation isn't that bad. But for the bottom 60%, it's getting worse. And then also what's not included is what I call the invisible inflation. And that is things that didn't used to cost money that cost money now. And it's something as simple as, I get to be on StreamYards right now because this isn't my account. I'm not paying for this. I can't afford a StreamYards account because there's no longer the ability to just buy software. You rent it for a year at a time. And so every year, so it'd be one thing if I could save up to buy a program and have that program and be able to use that program. But to have to do that every year as an expense when you live with poverty is extraordinarily difficult, especially with all the different things you would need. And, a simple example that I often relay is, and it doesn't even, and it's a tiny amount of money, but now every time I load my laundry card, because you can't just use coins anymore, you need to have a card that you pay for in the first place. Every time I load it, it now costs money to load it. It didn't when I first got here for the first couple of years. It didn't do that. But now every time I load it, it costs 25 cents. The machine isn't doing any extra work. It's just the corporations trying to find a way to literally nickel and dime us every single possible way. And then, like, I had a friend in a different apartment building that I would go and visit. Well, the visiting parking, which was just a dirt lot, was free. Well, now you have to download an app and pay to visit or park there. And so you start getting excluded more and more. And it's like all those little bits start adding up a lot. And again, it starts putting up barriers between me and the same spaces as a lot of these other people. Like, again, Twitter, I can't just randomly DM anyone. I don't have the same level of access to that program as people with money. And then it gets to the point where it starts costing more to just maintain what you have, because now it's like, oh, well, now you have to pay for premium or else you're going to start getting all these ads. You can't do these features that you used to be able to do unless you start paying for premium. And it gets to the point where you have to start cutting out more and more of the things in your life that make it bearable. And so, like, whenever people say, oh, yeah, you should just get rid of your Disney Plus, I just want to punch them in the face. I do. That would be very entertaining and cathartic here, because it shouldn't get to the point where we have to cut out every single luxury, excess, things that bring us some sort of comfort or joy before you can finally say, oh, you have it pretty bad living in poverty, huh? Because sometimes we don't have any other escapes. Sometimes that's all we have, and it's frustrating that people will look down at us and say, oh, well, you bought this extra thing, so therefore you living in dire poverty is your fault, when it's not. It's the fact that ODSP, that's the Ontario Disability Support Program, only pays out dire poverty levels for people who can't work. And so those are the problems. Oh my God, it's been like over a half hour and I still haven't gotten to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Hope you guys are enjoying this as I'm talking about it. But like, and then there's the other things that happen when you live with poverty that people who don't live with poverty would never know about. Like Rogers and Bell, they're the primary two monopolies up here in Canada when it comes to phone, internet, and cable. And so if you have a cell phone with them, and I ran into this problem a lot, I was like a day or two late on a bill. So they would cut my service, which if you're living with poverty is problematic in a lot of ways. Like if you're job hunting and somebody's calling you for interview, but your phone is cut at that time, then you lose out on that interview. Or doctor's appointments that, people trying to reach you for different things. So you lose out on all of those. But then it costs you $50 to reinstate it. So you're already broke, but now it costs you another $50 to just reactivate an account, like literally for them to flick a switch. And they keep on finding different ways of doing this. The fact that credit card companies live off of the interest that people with poverty are paying on the cards because we can't afford to completely pay off our cards. So when it comes to inflation and stuff, all of that is never included in the numbers. So they have no idea how bad it actually is if you are living with poverty, and inflation is crippling right now. Constantly having to cut back on different types of groceries, constantly worried about like, oh no, what happens if, my laptop is about to crap out, and my laptop is where I get all my entertainment from. Like it's in my living room, and that's what I used to do my live streaming on before I was able to upgrade to all of this computer stuff that I'm on right now. And the only reason why I was able to upgrade was I had a job and could save. At the time, I had a part-time job, and this was leading into my time with Rebel HQ at TYT, where I was making a decent income for me. For a lot of people, they wouldn't see it as decent, but I live cheap. So the laptop is in my living room, and I have it hooked up to my TV so I can watch all my videos and stuff like that, or play my games, all that. And it's about to just completely go to shit. I don't know how I can afford to replace it. There's one on my Amazon wish list if anyone has like, $1,500 just lying around, because it's not just a matter of getting a new laptop that's basic. I need one for my work, a portable studio, a backup studio. So if anything happens to this layout, I can use my laptop as a backup, or if I'm traveling, I have that. Or if I want to do an interview with somebody offsite, I can take the laptop with me. So it's not just a basic laptop I need, it's a gaming laptop that I need that can handle what I do on it. And so there's all of these things that come into play when you're living with poverty that is never included in the conversation. So if anyone has a line to Mehdi Hassan or Owen Jones, please let me know. I would love to get into contact with them to talk about these sorts of things. But, there's no way for me to reach them. There's no way for me to do anything. Like after that one talk about inflation, yeah, I'm sure I tweeted at them, I blue skied at them. I get almost no engagement on those accounts. I backed it up with facts and everything, a nice little thread of mine, but they're never going to see it because I don't have the level of engagement to make any. I've only ever had 2 tweets get over 1,000. Like that's 1,000 likes. That is it. So it's hard to just do this job when you live with poverty. And the logical leftists also saying, don't forget editing software that you have to rent. Yeah, it's all of the software that you use for these, because even Windows these days, you basically have to rent that. Like part of the reason why I need a new laptop is Windows is doing an upgrade and my old laptop will no longer be compatible with it. Like it's just, they do this on purpose so that you have to upgrade. And it is just, so when you have to have like 5 different programs, maybe Adobe, the video broadcasting, the editing programs, all of that you have to pay for every year. That was my cat playing with the doorstop. That was not me farting. When you add that up every year, like you need a significant amount every year to cover that off. Or even something as simple for me, I have a bunch of websites that I need the domain names of. That's in their yearly expense. And so quite often, when they count for inflation, they're looking at it monthly as opposed to yearly, what the extra expenses are yearly, not just in the moment, but yearly. And so, yeah,